People think about the physical transformation. Oh, diet and exercise, diet and exercise. No, the real secret to transformation is personal integrity. It's doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Because there's no greater act of love for yourself than following through with the commitment that you made. And whether you said that commitment quietly to yourself or you said it in front of a lot of people, when you do that, you're making yourself a priority. You're telling yourself over and over and over again that you are worthy enough to follow through with that. And now her sense of confidence and self-worth, I mean, it's incredible. Wait till you meet her. It's the most explosive personality you've ever seen. She'll walk in a room and she just lights it up because of the confidence. She'll walk in, her shoulders back and her head is high, and she just, it's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah. They don't let go. Right. We keep trying to help them. And because I love where you're going with this, because I wanted to bring this up too, where you mentioned the folks that after the show, they gain their weight back. I always have to remind myself that we're planting seeds. They now know it's possible. Mm-hmm. And we've had clients go back out time and time again, and then 5 years later, all of a sudden I'll get a message through Facebook or something, or they still have my cell phone number. Mm-hmm. Hey man, just want to let you know I got a couple years sober and I didn't want to reach out to you until I had that time.
Let's go.
Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
And we have a familiar face. You may have seen him on television quite a few times. Chris Powell. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great, guys.
Thanks for coming on. Good. First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. And thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message, right, Ben?
That is what we are doing here.
What'd you think of that intro, Chris?
I was about to say you've done that once or twice, haven't you?
Yeah, it's
that's great.
It's a little long, so I have to take a big, deep breath in.
Yeah,
work on that cardio.
Yeah, Chris.
Success, though. You did a great job.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate you coming on. We're here at NCI in Orlando. Man, I'll tell you what, it's been pretty transformational for Ben and I. And just a little backstory on how this kind of came about. Chris, you came here to be one of the keynote speakers.
Correct, yes.
And, Ben and I are just kind of like, well, hey, you don't, what's the worst that can happen? He says no, right?
Right.
And so I'm standing there, and I think, Ben, you went to go to the gym or something. Or you went to...
No, I was there.
Oh, you were there.
I ended up walking up.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
And so Chris, of course, had probably 10 or 12 ladies standing around him, all wanting to get pictures and stuff. And I'm just standing there pretending like I'm busy on my phone, waiting. And so we walk up to you and, hey, man, listen, just throwing it out there. We're doing this podcast. It's all about addiction and recovery and stuff like that. And wanted to throw the offer out. And the coolest thing was, I think before I even got the sentence out, you said yes.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned addiction and recovery, and I've got a history there, and so it's a no-brainer, of course. And I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. So.
That's the thing that's blown me away about this whole convention. Everybody that spoke or that I'm talking to has in some way, shape, or form mentioned mental health, some form of addiction. And then when I was listening to you speak, because I look at you and I just assume you have your life together. People do that, but and the pain that we have to go through as individuals to get where we are, people don't get to see that side of the story. So when you mentioned your addiction, I was like, no way.
Yes.
I was blown back in my seat. He was where we were, and it's it's wild.
Well, and what's interesting is especially during my run on television and during that era as well, a lot of times they'll portray the host as the hero, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing is, in order, I'll tell you straight up, I would never have had that opportunity if I hadn't gone through my addiction, because it gave me some of the greatest gifts in the world of compassion and empathy for the people that are struggling. And so it was actually one of the major stepping stones, and it was a crucible that I had to go through to make it here. I would not be here right now if I hadn't lost everything and struggled with the 2-year opiate addiction and found myself living in my car. I wouldn't be here. And so it led me here. And of course, when you're going through it, you know, it's funny because when you're in the shit, and can I say that right
Yeah,
now?
okay.
Yeah.
when you're in it, you can't see the blessings in it. You can't see the opportunities to grow, right? And especially like when you're struggling with it, the lessons are still to be learned in the process, right? But then after the fact, looking back, I think about where I would have been if that hadn't happened, and the trajectory of my life would have been a different, very different course. And so then, of course, then 5 years on TV, and then I'm the guy who's helping everybody else through their shit, and especially dealing with, the addiction that I was dealing with most was food addiction, and with the folks I was working. But I'll tell you straight up, all of them know my story, because it was also one of the things, because I've never dealt with food addiction. I've never been obese or super obese. But I'll tell you straight up is that I share that story on day one with the individuals I'm going to take through a journey of transformation. And they realize that, while he doesn't completely get my situation, he's felt the pain before. He's felt the hopelessness. He's been in a really dark place. And it helps me connect with them from the get-go, but it's not a false connection. It's very genuine and very real. And they figured that out real fast. And then we can go on this amazing journey together. And then also me opening up and being vulnerable with them about that gives them permission to open up and be vulnerable with me about all the things that they deal with as well. And then we lock arms and we go,
Being human beings. And this goes back to we're both addictions counselors too. And what they teach you in school generically, build that relationship, that rapport. And when you look at fitness, for instance, I've been hearing this all week. Everyone's looking at let's look at your macros, let's look at the scale, but the reality is that everybody in this space that's successful is talking about that connection.
Yes.
First. It's not about numbers. It's not about appearance.
Right.
It's about personal growth.
It is, and it brings me back to that saying, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's true. Guys, nowadays, everything is it's 2 clicks away. Just if you have a question, ask Google or ask ChatGPT. And the answers are there, but people are seeking connection with other humans. Because while technology is advancing, one thing that's getting worse, and one of the biggest growing epidemics, is loneliness and human connection. And a robot, or artificial intelligence it can't replace that,
It's interesting that you say that, because everybody's up in arms about AI, as I think we should be in some capacity. But I agree 100% with what you're saying. There's something to be said with face-to-face connection. And what really proved this is COVID. COVID especially in our space, the whole world was shut down, right? And fortunately, we live in Florida, so Florida opened up relatively quickly. But our whole business in terms of Rock Recovery Center, which is the treatment center that we run in West Palm Beach, it was mandated that you run virtual groups, right? And Ben and I, we did it. Yeah.
Virtual groups for addicts.
We did it for probably
one session.
Yeah. And we're like, fuck this. We're not doing this. If you want to take us to court or whatever, go for it. So what we ended up doing is we ended up, it's Florida, so you could always be outside. We opened up the big garage bay doors where our gym is. We put chairs outside. And we're like, no, you're not sitting at home and zooming in. You're going to come to the center just like we were a week ago, and we'll deal with this whole COVID thing as it comes. And the meetings were shut down, so you couldn't go to AA meetings, you couldn't go to NA meetings, nothing. And when people, and our phones were blowing up left and right from people that have relapsed or for whatever reason, even the extent of, because we're in South Florida, a lot of our clients come from the Northeast. West Palm Beach is South Florida there's a ton of recovery there, right?
Right.
We had parents calling, and as soon as they find out that we're in Florida, they're like, oh no, I can't put my son or daughter on an airplane. Do you know what's happening right now with COVID? And Ben, I think I heard him tell a mom, like, your son is going to die from a heroin overdose before he dies from COVID.
Yeah.
You know, so, and to bring it back to the human connection piece, we still to this day have people that went through the whole online meeting era and haven't broken away from it. And it's like, is your recovery where it really truly can be? Because there's something to be said, Chris, with you and I and Ben, like you're in Arizona and we're sitting in our offices in West Palm Beach and doing a podcast.
Right.
It's great. I mean, hell, it's awesome. But like, there's so much more to us sitting here right now.
Oh,
so
1,000%. Yeah. Nothing beats that the in-person connection. And but I chuckled at the very beginning when you said like virtual meetings for addicts, because such a huge part of the recovery is trying to get them out of their environment, you know, where they're surrounded by the triggers. So you guys know this better than I do, but removing them from their environment to put them in a safe place where now they can open up and they can connect with other people. And it's like it's because it's not just people that kind of help enforce your identity, but your environment does also. And so when people are in the same environment where they're using and you know and the addiction is really strong in controlling them, it's like it's so important to remove them to at least make them a little bit more pliable for change, right? Because we did that actually on the show.
I was literally just going to go there.
Of course, you know, it's like because the form of addiction I dealt with was food addiction. Most of the folks that I'm working with, when you're 400, 500, 600 pounds. It's not that you really like lasagna, you know, or ice cream. It's like they're eating far beyond their satiety signals, right? Far beyond fullness, because they're trying to numb pain. They're trying to solve a problem. That's why they eat, because they're eating to escape. Just the same as taking heroin to escape, your opiates or cocaine or meth or whatever it is. You're just trying to, and I heard it put in that way. It's like, people that are addicts they're trying to solve a problem, and then of course here comes the physical addiction. You know, at first a lot of times they're looking to escape there, but then once the physical addiction sets in, the dynamic changes. But so for my people, we would remove them all from their old environment, work with them for 3 months, then put them back in the environment for 9 months, and see if they could take the tools that we gave them and apply them. And so that's
how did that work? Because that's really the model that we use.
Yeah.
We offer sober living. We have the whole treatment component. So they have licensed mental health counselors, the whole gamut. You know, they're with us for generally 3 to 5 months is about where you see it. And then oftentimes they'll go back home and carry on with their sobriety. But the people that, at least in our experience, the people that kind of cut the treatment process short, you know, only do the whole 30 days and go back home, very oftentimes they're not successful because you haven't been removed from your environment long enough. And so how did you guys see that working?
It very, very similar to drug addiction. There were some that continue to be successful today, 8-9 years after the show, and there were some that relapsed immediately. And when their year was over, they went right back to their old habits. And I see the look you're giving me, and it's like, and you think about that, like all of the work that they put in. Yeah. And here's the thing, I'm great friends with 99% of the people that I took through their journey of transformation, 76 transformations over 5 years. And it's really cool because they can be very open and honest with me because we've developed that rapport, that relationship. And some of them have even reported to me, they're like, dude, the night of my finale, you know, where we were on stage together and you were holding my hand up high and I had lost 200 pounds. I went to Buffalo Wild Wings that night. I got smashed. I crushed, baskets of chicken wings and fries. And it's like, and then others were like, No, like the night of my finale, I actually registered for a marathon 3 months later. And I was actually planning a move to another state. And I was getting, I was looking up certifications to become a trainer. It was like this
Vast
very,
difference.
very, yes, that's exactly what it was. And it wasn't, I saw more success in the people that wanted to continue their journey, because while they had lost the weight, we got everyone across the finish line when it comes to their weight loss. I mean, the real challenge, it's not the weight loss, it's maintaining it for the rest of your life, because you're not getting that payoff anymore. There were a lot of variables involved in our journey, because, you're at the end of the year, you're going to be held accountable. There's going to be cameras in your face, and that's going to be piped out to millions of people who are going to see your journey. So and not in a bad way, but if you actually take a step back and you look at our approach, there was ego involved. And again, not in a bad way, but imagine if you had the opportunity of everyone who walked into the center say, we're going to be filming your entire journey of sobriety. And you have 1 year to become sober. And the whole world is going to be watching your journey. Nobody wants to look bad in front of the world, right? Mm-hmm. But when you don't have those cameras, you don't have that kind of accountability. You might have a couple people. You can hide from those people, but you can't hide from the world. And so there was a massive, there was a lever of where we were leveraging ego. Again, not in a bad way, because no one wanted to look bad at the end of their year. So people would hustle to get across that line. That's where vetting these individuals from the beginning to see who really wanted to lose weight and who wanted to be on a TV show. There was like kind of two individuals. All of them were addicted to food. Some people just really wanted to be on a TV show and make it through, and have this experience where everybody loved them. They didn't, and as much as we would tell them, this is for the rest of your life. Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, of course. No, I got this. If you ever hear an addict say, "Oh, I got this,"
the stamp of death right there.
Bingo.
I got this.
Yep.
I hate hearing that.
Yep. There should always be that fear, because that 800-pound gorilla is always knocking at the door. And the other ones that would say, "No, I'm terrified. My year is almost over, and I'm terrified that I'm not going to have this accountability anymore." Then it's like, "Oh, okay. Like
We can work with that.
We could work with that. Okay, now then what is it that you want to do? Well, I am so scared to go back. I'll do whatever it takes. I want to I want to get certified to be a trainer. I'm going to sign up for a marathon. I want to do this. So they start setting these longer term goals, and it's like, dude, guess what? They succeed. And we've seen some incredible success stories.
You have somebody. I feel like I heard you speak yesterday at your talk, which you did great, by the way.
Thank you.
Did I hear correctly that maybe at least one or a couple of people that you took through transformations work with you now?
Yeah.
Or like for you, or in some capacity?
My right-hand woman, she's my VP. She helped me start my nonprofit. She actually runs all the operations of my company. I met her in season 5 of my show. It's Rachel from season 5 of my show. And by the way, she's 9 years sober now.
Oh.
Yep. So, and here's her journey. Not only was she addicted to food, but she's an alcoholic as well. And so but we didn't know that going through the show. And so she was hiding her alcohol addiction as we went through the journey. And so I helped her get down to, she started at 315 pounds, got down to like 180, 160 for her finale. It looked phenomenal. And we had such an incredible connection, just through the whole process. She's just a great person. And immediately when the show ended, she didn't have food anymore, but she was using alcohol, and her alcohol addiction got out of hand. And she ended up going into AA a year after, because her life was falling apart. And so she ended up going to AA, and then when she stopped drinking, she ended up gaining all the weight back, because it's like in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Remember when Indiana Jones, he's in the temple and there's like that little gold medallion. He's got the sandbag and he tries to do the little switcheroo. Yeah. She's sitting there just trying to do the switcheroo, because like she's trying to replace her addiction. It's like, oh, I can't have food. I'll have alcohol. I can't have alcohol. Shit. What do I do? Here's food again. And she ended up gaining all of her weight back. And, but she and I had kept in contact over the years. She disappeared for a while in the depths of her alcohol addiction. Maybe it was maybe it was 2 years after the show that she ended up getting sober. It's January, I want to say January 18th is her date. And yeah, she ended up reaching out to me a couple years after the show and making amends and apologizing for the things I didn't even know, but it was part of her process of sobriety, right? Going through the 12-step program. And then from there, she said, I'm going to pick up. I want to move out to Arizona. She started working with me and my ex-wife at the time. And then during our divorce, she kind of helped me through all of that. And she's helped me grow in an incredible empire since. And having gone through the 12-step program, like it has completely changed her life. And by the way, going through the course of that as well, and understanding herself so much better, applying those same principles and going back to the lessons that she learned in the show. Now, no cameras in her face, but she's lost 170 pounds in the last 14 months and she's back. Yeah, she just dropped under 200 pounds. And yeah, it's so cool to see the real Rachel for the first time, really, you know, because she discovered herself, and I've just watched her transform now, you know, through this journey of sobriety and now through this journey of physical transformation as she's completely changed herself. And man, she's more alive now than ever before. And she's one of my best friends of all time. She and I are texting. We text 20 times a day because we're running a company together. She's my right-hand girl.
I can't believe how much of this correlates. Like, obviously, you're an expert at communicating fitness and health and diet. And I'm realizing sitting here, like, I need to get better at communicating this because it's a huge part of my recovery, our center's recovery, our clients. But the way that you communicate it and all the parallels, like, for instance, something you just brought up, but you work together now. I would say, over half of our staff we watched get sober. And through their journey, like, some years went by and we're like, oh, man, they've been sober a while now. And we've watched them transform.
Yes.
And we're like, we want you.
Yes.
You know, so probably over half of our staff, Tom and I have watched get sober.
Oh,
you know,
so cool.
We try and hire within. You know, the thing that is, and I would like to spend a minute on this, is exactly what you were saying though, the Indiana Jones reference. There's something to be said with figuring out what we're trying to find an external solution for an internal problem.
Right.
And even some of the people that, you know, AA's massive, right? It's in, I don't know, Ben would know, it's in a gajillion countries. It's in how many different languages. Helps millions of people get sober. But the one thing that I don't understand and I can't wrap my head around is people say, oh, I'm not drinking, I'm not drugging anymore, but it's still okay to do X, Y, and Z. And you see people they get sober. Like, I'm a good example. I got sober. I weighed 180 pounds when I got sober. And for me, that's light. I'm generally just a huskier guy, you know?
Yeah.
And I went into detox and I gained about 50 to 55 pounds in 45 days. That's how my body, now granted, a lot of that was fat, you know, because I just started eating and eating.
You're trying to replace that addiction.
Yeah. And, you know, and my body was just so nutrient, you know, whatever. But you see these people that it's like, hey, man, you removed the drugs and the alcohol, the thing that is going to kill you probably extremely quickly.
Yeah.
You know, whether that be through crash of a car or an overdose now with fentanyl, whatever the case is. Why don't we start now changing other aspects of your life? Whether that be, because I mean, we see people in AA that are 400 or 500 pounds that are outside the meetings smoking cigarettes. And it's like, dude, you stopped drinking 20 years ago and you're out here scarfing down McDonald's, smoking cigarettes. That is frustrating to me. It's like, how can you break through to those people? Because I don't know. It's that external problem or external solution for an internal problem.
Right.
And it sounds like, what's her name? Rachel. She went through that.
She did.
And something happened for her to where at 14 months ago, she's like, fuck this.
Yep.
Something happened. I don't know what that was. I don't know if you know. We don't necessarily need to go into it, but something happened for her to where she's like, I need to make a change.
Yes. It was a series of events for her, because she and I, we've been working together for 4+ years. She drove out to Arizona at 360 pounds and started working with me. And for me, you know, it's kind of interesting because it's not even interesting. I love her for who she is.
Yeah.
She's one of my best friends. We became friends on the show. I don't care if she's 315 pounds. I don't care if she's 116 pounds. She's Rachel.
Yeah.
And so she gets in the car and she came out. And by the way, not to sidetrack, but sometimes I think that's what so many people who are struggling with addiction really need, is they need to be loved unconditionally, regardless. You know, like having known a lot of people who struggle with drug addiction, alcohol addiction, etc., you know, shame fuels that addiction, and feeling like, because I'm an addict, because I do this, because I'm not lovable. And so I think coming from a history of that, letting him know that, you know, and she felt shame. She felt shame that she lost all this weight on the show and she gained it all back. And we go places, and, you know, I would bring her to my meetings, and I run a weight loss company, and she'd be sitting right next to me at 360 pounds. And she would, sometimes I'd see her, like, you know, feeling uncomfortable about herself. And I'd just tap her leg or something under the table and be like, you know, kind of give her a little nudge, just let her know, hey, we got this. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm right here with you. Like, it's all good. And we're going to do this. We're doing it together. And through that process, she's, you know, realizing that she's beautiful as she is. She's worthy. She's valuable. She's always enough. And then, you know, and we had such a great relationship. She could talk to me about anything. And at this time, I mean, she's several years sober, you know, 6-7 years sober at this point. So she learned how to communicate so well about her feelings and her emotions. But there were also a series of events, you know, when we ended up flying out to a convention here in Orlando, of all places. And we went to Universal, and she couldn't fit on the rides. And she was worried about, on the flight out, she got 2 seats. She needed to. And so there were just a series of painful events as she was going back through it that, you know, obviously she struggled with her weight throughout her life. She's with the yo-yo diets. And it was a moment where she's like, I just can't do this anymore. And I said, okay, make one promise. What's the single promise that you want to make to yourself? And at first we started off with just moving for 5 minutes a day. She was going to go on a walk for 5 minutes a day. And that it held for a little while. Then it started to taper off, you know, and I would call her every day, and she would check in, and she's like, I went on my walk, great job. I went on my walk, great job. And it was about, and no matter what, she just had to keep that promise to herself every single day. And we kept it so small. I just wanted to lower the barrier of entry of just getting into the habit of keeping that commitment. It's not about physical exercise or anything like that. It's just about keeping a promise to herself, about making herself worthy enough to keep that promise. And that one didn't stick for her. And I remember we were driving in the car, and she's like, I'm really struggling with this walking thing. She's like, honestly, I want to make a different promise. Okay, so what's your promise going to be? She said, I will no longer eat pizza alone. That's my first promise. Okay, and by the way, in that promise, she could eat pizza when she's with friends. But her issue was like she would go order 2 pizzas to her house, and she would eat it alone all the time. She said, I'll no longer eat pizza alone. I can eat it with my friends. Great. She kept that for like 2 weeks, and she's like, CP, this is easy. I'm no longer going to go through the drive-through. If I want fast food, I'll park my car and I'll walk in. A couple weeks later, she's like, dude, I got this. She's like, I haven't eaten pizza alone in a month now. I haven't been to a drive-through in 2 weeks. I don't even want to park and walk in. I was more addicted to the experience of driving through. It was the rituals that, you know, it was the rituals. And then she's like, all right, CP, I'm no longer, she calls me CP, and I call her CP because she's Coach Paul. Rachel Paul is her name, but all of her friends call her Coach Paul. So we're CP and CP. And so she's like, yo, CP, I've got this. I'm no longer going to order any DoorDash because, you know, sure enough, she wasn't eating pizzas at home, but she was ordering, other stuff to be delivered. She's like, no more DoorDash. Okay. She's like, and if I want the food, I'll get in my car and I'll go drive and get it. Absolutely. And if I do, if I drive to Taco Bell, I'll text you my entire order. I will not hold back. Cool. So guess what? Friday nights, she would send me her Taco Bell order. I'd be like, awesome, CP. Enjoy the queso burritos and, whatever it is. And we got into this rhythm. She kept those 3 promises to herself. And that started the whole thing. And then from there, 3 months in, we ended up getting her a membership at F45 just so she could go feel like that group camaraderie. Started working out again. And then before you know it, then she's joining me in my garage gym and we're all working out together. And then she's like, CP, this is 4 months. And she's like, I want to start tracking my macros. Cool. You know how to do it. Awesome. We pull it out. She starts tracking her macros. Before you know it, here we are, 170 pounds later, 14 months. She's completely changed again. And it's cool, but it starts with, people think about the physical transformation. Oh, diet and exercise. No, the real secret to transformation is personal integrity. It's doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Because there's no greater act of love for yourself than following through with the commitment that you made. And whether you said that commitment quietly to yourself or you said it in front of a lot of people, when you do that, you're making yourself a priority. You're telling yourself over and over and over again that you are worthy enough to follow through with that. And now her sense of confidence and self-worth, it's incredible. Wait till you meet her. It's the most explosive personality you've ever seen. She'll walk in a room and she just lights it up because of the confidence. She'll walk in, her shoulders back and her head is high. And she just, it's the coolest thing in the world.
Sounds like she inspires you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I guess you could say that I'm addicted to now. Working with our clients, and we were talking about this before we hit record. The part that I struggle with is like, I have to be hands-on with our clients on their journey. Like I struggle with like, oh, let's grow this. Because I just feel so inspired by their stories, by their progress, by the promises that they make themselves and they keep.
Yes.
And I wish our audience could like be here sitting with us. Because just to be very straightforward, what's going through my head is like I know you from TV, but then, and maybe Tom could zoom in on the camera when he's editing, but your eyes started to water when you were telling part of this story.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Like without sobriety, without these journeys, without these struggles, we wouldn't feel that in our heart, and that's what I keep coming back for personally. I don't ever want to lose that. And the value of, the 12th step is service to others. And the reality of the situation is I wanted to just really hit this home that like you do so much service for other people. However, I can physically see the response on you, know, and it's just like you're going to implode. Yeah. And that's how I feel right now. I'm like, man, the purpose, the meaning, it's wild.
There's a payoff, and that payoff is like it's almost like the currency you're playing with is that feeling that you get when you see someone change and they turn around, they say thank you, and you see them, you see their life, you see them just level up in life, you see their life get better and better and better, and it's like wow, you just the fact that you talk about the clients that you work with. You're a catalyst for their change, and it brings purpose and meaning to your life. And I think watching Ed Milet on stage and in this Q&A afterward, he talked about, he lives for contribution and significance. And I live for contribution and significance. Those help me feel whole as a human. I think they validate my existence. Does that make sense?
1,000%.
Yeah.
What I was picking up on that whole entire time that you were talking about Rachel, CP.
Yes.
is that like you guys, like she gives you that purpose. She gives you the drive. And the fact that you stuck by her because, and one thing that you not often, but you do see not only inside AA and NA and stuff like that, but when people relapse, on drugs and alcohol, there's a saying inside AA, what is it, Ben? We don't shoot our wounded, right? And most of the time that is the case.
Yeah.
You know, we stick by them. Hey, don't feel shame. Come back, come back, come back. And a lot of times people just, they get in their head and come up with all the reasons in the world why I can't go back to that meeting. And, you know, we're welcoming them with open arms, of course. But then you have the people that do shoot their wounded. And I mean, I hate to say it, but there's bad AA people out there that will write people off, you know? There's bad sponsors out there that say, if you don't do this, 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 and this, I'm not going to be your sponsor, or I'm not, you know, you can't come to this meeting, or whatever the case is. Ben, we've heard all the stories.
That's why I'm such a literature guy. Like the big book used an example, like about a guy that went back out a half a dozen times, and it said each time we worked with him, they don't let go. Right. We keep trying to help them. And because I love where you're going with this, because I wanted to bring this up too, where you mentioned the folks that after the show, they gained their weight back. I always have to remind myself that we're planting seeds. They now know it's possible. Like, and we've had clients go back out time and time again. And then 5 years later, like all of a sudden I'll get a message through Facebook or something, or they still have my cell phone number. Hey man, just want to let you know I got a couple years sober and I didn't want to reach out to you until I had that time. And I'm just like,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get letters from clients. I got a letter from a young man who actually, it was more like an amends letter, but it was like 4 pages of everything that he said that we did for him, even though when he left, we felt like we failed.
Yeah.
And he's like, his letter was all about how we did not fail, and he is where he is today because of what, you know, our contribution to him, even though it didn't happen right away.
You know, I think it's interesting that you say that you feel like you failed when people go out and they relapse. I feel that too. I feel the same way. You know, when you help someone through a journey, you give them all the tools, and they go out and you think, what could I have done? What more did they need to know? What could I have shown them? Like what was it they needed to hear that I didn't say? Like it wasn't something. And I can't tell you how many therapists, because I go to therapy too, about this, literally about the fact like I failed them. They went out and they gained the weight back, and they're like, no, those individuals, they have free agency to make their own choices. Like you can't own that. You've done everything that you can in your power. It's not like you held anything back. You know, you tried to give them everything you possibly could. But isn't it something? But sometimes the feelings are still there. They still remain. And even though, and I'm a coach too. It's like, I know better, but at the same time, the feelings are still there, and I'm still seeking the whole solution, and I can't, and it's not there yet. There's still missing pieces of the puzzle, because like, what I'm looking for is a one size fits all, right? To every human. It's like, oh, you're an addict? Come in here, and I'm going to put you through this program. You know, we're going to put you on the conveyor belt, and then we're just going to go ahead and, we're going to tweak this, and you are good for the rest of your life. You know, it's like,
doesn't work that way.
Man, it'd be a lot easier, wouldn't it be? And then you're like, dude, and there's no such thing as relapse. Wouldn't that be nice?
Well, we'd be unemployed. So.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
And you wouldn't have had a TV show.
No, yes, I'd be out of a job.
So what do you do now? Like I want to transition to more about, you and kind of where your journey has led you up to where you are today, obviously speaking at NCI. And, one thing I do appreciate amongst, everything about you, but just the fact of how open you were even doing the talk yesterday about all your failures.
Thank you.
Because people need to hear that. And I think you said that you got kicked in the teeth like 7 times or something before.
7 years?
7 years.
Or 7 years.
Yeah, 7 years of failures before I had my first win in the industry.
And that's from when you stopped using pain pills to...
Pain pills was a 2-year process that when I was addicted to opioids. And no, it was actually when after I really got after I kind of found my place as far as helping people through the journey of transformation, like after I had my work with my buddy David, and he had lost all the weight, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is my purpose. This is what I'm here to do. This is my calling on earth. And I go out there and I start my first company, fails. Start a second company, it fails. I create an exercise and nutrition DVD, failed.
That was funny, by the way, seeing it on the big screen. What was it called again?
Triaxium.
Triaxium with young Chris Powell on the cover.
And then, boy, I was a young pup back then.
Yeah.
But you could, like, I wanted to show everyone, like, look, I got gray hair and wrinkles now, and then they could see, like, I was a baby back then. I've been in this hustle for a long time, since like the early 2000s. Like, I've been grinding. And but they all just, I mean, it was just one fail after the next. Then I created like this nutrition system, failed. And it was actually during that whole process, that's when I herniated a disc in my back. And we're talking, this is 2006. And so that's where, every doctor in 2006, you go to them for back pain, they go, oh, here's a prescription for Vicodin. Yeah. And it wasn't like, the 30 count. It was the 180 count of Norcos, right? And
oh yeah,
dude, I say Norcos and everyone goes, "Oh, 10 through 25s, huh?" And it's like, yeah, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. And then it doesn't help when you got a buddy whose brother works at the Norco factory, and
oh, jeez,
dude, we were running volume through my place. Yeah, it was bad because what happened is that my company, this invention that I created that I was so passionate about was falling apart. I had a herniated disc in my back, so I mean, I was frozen for quite some time and in a lot of pain. And it was like, I realized that painkillers, yeah, they kill the physical pain, but they also kill the emotional pain of failing in life. And so, when I start managing the physical pain, back doesn't hurt anymore. It's the muscles are releasing. Okay, I've learned how to move around it. But I'm still losing my ass, and I'm in $200,000 of debt. I got nothing to my name. I'm trying to train people, and I can't make up for the deficit that I'm in. I can't get out, but I can escape. And I turned to opioids just to escape life because it was unbearable. And you know what it was? What really fueled the addiction was my ego. Because the thing is, I had helped my best friend, David, lose an incredible amount of weight. People were really starting to notice. I had a gig on the morning news. I was the fitness guy on the morning news during this entire time. So people would they'd recognize me. Oh, dude, Chris Powell, like in a local sense. And they put me on this pedestal, and I was trying to live up to this vision of the fact that I was successful. But my secret, and as they say in AA, you're only as sick as your secrets, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was keeping the secret of the fact that I was $200,000 in debt. I was failing. My product, it was falling apart. I couldn't sell it. I couldn't get my shit together. So I would just escape every day with painkillers. And then, those Norcos they turned into, I played around with Vicodin. Percocet never did it for me, but then my roommate got hooked on OxyContin. Yep. So he's at first, he's running 20s and 40s, and before you know it, it's 80s. He's blowing lines of 80s off the countertop, and it was a mess. And it wasn't on him at all. He's probably one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. And it's the funny thing is that all of my buddies, because there's a group of us that kind of we all went down together because we all got hooked on opiates, opiates together. They're the nicest people in the world. They're just some of the sweetest people, the kindest hearts. And, a lot of times, from the outside in, you mention, an addict, and people go, oh, and they get this image of, junkies. And, it's almost like this bad connotation. I'm like, shit, you kidding me? They're the sweetest people I've ever met in my life. And it's like, man, it's just good people. And we all just got caught in the grips of it. And, so we went through 2 years of that and just escaping. And I tried to sober up. I can't tell you how many times I tried to go cold turkey, grind it out for a day and a half and just can't do it anymore. Oh, I just need one to start to feel normal, and one before you know it. It's like, you go 2 days without, one feels good enough, at first. And you're like, and then the moment it kicks in, you're like, okay, I got to take this to the next level.
Yeah.
And then here comes three more. and now I'm cranking again, and I'm working, and I'm back, and I can go do a TV segment and everything. You can't do a TV segment when you're detoxing. You can't do a TV segment.
Yeah,
you can't be on. So,
see, that's the part people don't realize is for me, it actually because when I started doctor shopping, I was probably 19, 20, and I was working for LA Fitness, and I remember the first time I consistently like got some Roxys and Oxys, and my sales skyrocketed. I was on the phone, I was marketing like crazy, pounding the pavement, but as my tolerance went up, my performance went down because I couldn't afford it anymore, and I started showing up sick. So what people don't realize is like in the beginning, for me, it was actually an enhancement. It was significantly bettering my performance until it wasn't later. And people, like, they look at it, they're like, why would you do that to yourself? But what they don't realize is that first part.
Right. And the other part of that is, your performance goes up. Your boss is like, bro, you're killing it. Oh, dude, keep this going. And before you know it, you're high-fiving everyone. You're the man in the club because it's like, dude, he is killing it. His clients couldn't be happier. They're having these great sessions. He's got so much energy. He's smiling all the time. And like you, that the voice you start playing in your head is, oh, this makes me a better person. Yep. And that's before you know it, I'd pop 4 Vicodin and I'd go do a TV segment and crush it. And the producers, your energy is through the roof. The audience loves you. And so immediately it's like, well, I need 4 every single time I'm going to go on them because I need to crush it for the people. Like, I can't show up exhausted. I can't show up and, forget what I'm going to say and all this other stuff. It's just like, no, I need it in order for me to perform at my best. Same as my tolerance went up, I was chasing the dragon, dude.
Yeah. Well, it's positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
As soon as the producer told you, great job. Whoa. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was 2 years. Why did you stop then?
I reached a point where, I was out of money, and so I couldn't afford to live in the condo I was in anymore. My roommate owned the condo. He was so deep in his addiction, he couldn't afford to. He wasn't paying the mortgage on it anymore, and so we had to move out. It was a perfect storm. In the process of that, though, because he was so heavy and deep in his addiction, he ended up getting some Suboxone. Yeah. You guys familiar with?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I did it all. Suboxone, methadone. When I tell you, there's not much I can't relate to with addicts.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many conversations we had where it's like, all right, dude, we got to stop. I know, bro. I'm right there with you. All right. Tomorrow's the day. If I told you how many times this is a weekly conversation, it was just like, all right, dude, Saturday, no more. Okay, dude, I'm right there. And then Saturday comes and goes. We know the story.
Yeah.
So he's like, I got Suboxone. We're going to stop this. And so on Saturday, we end up taking some Suboxone. The volume of OxyContin he was consuming was far beyond what I was on. And so, because I'm a hyper responder, so I could take a 40, I could take an 80, and I'm freaking flying. He'd require 4. And he was doing them. He was just throughout the day anyway. So he gets some Suboxone. The moment I take it, dude, I can't see straight. Room spinning. I start vomiting. Once it starts kicking in, and I end up feeling really sick on it immediately.
Precipitated withdrawal. Yeah.
Holy smoke! And so I go in my room, and I'm just like, I'm laying on my bed, and everything's spinning. I feel absolutely terrible. I'm like, dude, I thought this was supposed to make me feel better, And he's quiet for a couple hours, comes out, and he's like, bro, go in my bathroom. I don't know what's wrong. And I go in the bathroom, and there's blood everywhere. And his guts released. And what had happened is he was so backed up from the opiates and the opioids that he had developed cysts, all around his colon and everything, because he had shit in there for so long. And so when his guts released, he started just crapping everything out. This is probably a couple hours in. He started crapping everything out and just started bleeding out. And so there's blood everywhere. And I was like, dude, you got to go to the hospital. He's like, I can't go because his dad is a really well-known heart surgeon. And he's like, my dad will kill me. I can't go. He just stay here with me. And I'm like, bro, if you don't go now, like, I'm going to call your dad. Like, if you don't do something, you're going to die, because he couldn't stop bleeding. He was bleeding out. So we got him into the hospital. And it was actually, this was kind of like my aha moment, like the moment where I kind of woke up when it was just like the moment of clarity, right? And so we got him into the hospital and checked him in. They got him in a gurney, got him into a room and everything. I was like, all right, dude, I'll come back tomorrow. I'll check on you. Okay, dude, you're going to be okay. You know, I shortened the story a lot, but there was a lot of drama over the next few hours while we're like, okay, we got to get this guy. I got to get him in, 'cause otherwise he's going to die in this condo. So he's in the hospital. I go back to the condo. In the meantime, like, I'm still trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to do, because, you know, we're going to be in this place for maybe another month. We got the roof over our heads. And so I go back to the hospital the next day, and I'm just like, how are you feeling? He's like, oh, I'm feeling so much better, dude. Thank you. Oh my gosh, that was crazy. And I was like, yeah, dude, I was sick as a dog. You know, it's like, I'm finally just starting to feel better now. And is everything okay? Did you tell them? Everything? He's like, dude, I told them everything. I was like, you told them all about the opiates and the opioids and, you know, everything that we've done. He's like, yeah, dude, I can't do this anymore. All right. The nurse comes in and she's like, how's the pain? He's like, oh, it's pretty high. And immediately he went from, yeah, dude, I think everything's going to be okay. Nurse comes in. He goes, oh, and she goes, do you need more Dilaudid? He's like, yeah. And I go, what the, bro? He's like, dude, not now. I can't do it right now.
Oh, man.
Bro, what the? He probably knows this now because I've talked about this once or twice before. But so when I left his room, I went to the head nurse on the floor and I said, hey, you know, patient room 722. So he's heavily addicted to opioids. And I told her the whole story. And she goes, oh, I had no idea. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, you know, because he ended up, what had happened, it was cystic colitis, because with all the cysts on the colon that had ruptured. So he was in there for cystic colitis, but they didn't know the cause of it.
Right.
And so she's giving him pain meds for cystic colitis. And he wasn't about to tell her, but she's like, and when she asked him for more Dilaudid, the one thing I heard, she goes, do you need more Dilaudid? And he goes, oh, yes, please. Yes. She goes, oh my, okay. Let me check and make sure I can give you more, because he'd already taken so much, right? Because, you know, his receptors are full, right? They're not. And so, like, obviously, and then the moment I told her that, but this is like, this is 2008 now, she goes, oh, that makes sense now. Because I think she was trying to put together, it's like, we keep pumping this guy full of pain medication, and now he's still screaming in the hospital bed. And so that's I went back and I was like, well, shit. I started packing up all my stuff, because I'm like, you know, first of all, when he finds out that I told him about this, nicest guy in the world. He's like seriously the sweetest guy, but he's gonna lose his shit and he's gonna want to kill me, and he's gonna kick me out, because he's gonna be so pissed, because they scaled him back on, they wouldn't give him any more of the heavy stuff, and they just started tapering him off and just giving him Percocets and just feeding him only when he needed them. And then he started threatening to kill himself. They had to handcuff him to the gurney, and I mean, it turned into a whole thing. He ended up in the hospital. He was there for a month, and then he ended up going to methadone clinics and everything, and spent a couple years in and out of methadone clinics. So I'm sure this is a story you guys have heard all too often.
We were talking with Brad Jensen, the sober bodybuilder, yesterday, and how quickly we can forget. And this is why it's so valuable for somebody like me to hear these stories, because it literally brings me back. You know, one of my rock bottoms was being on the methadone program, and I was still shooting heroin, a lot of heroin. And one day I was just like, I'm done, and I tried to go cold turkey, ended up in the hospital, and I remember feeling so powerless when the hospital said, the only thing we can do is give you more methadone.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I came here to not be on it. And they're like, there's nothing else we can do.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're giving you methadone. That was like, for me, the beginning of the end of my addiction. Just that, oh my God, they're telling me there's nothing they can do but give me more.
Yeah.
And man, but it just, kind of like puts my stomach in knots, but it's the reminder that somebody like me needs.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you're not alone in this, man. There are so many of the same story, millions of times over, here in America alone, that have been through something very similar. And that was his journey. And seeing that, I was like, when I walked out of the hospital, I'm like, that's it. And I was still high when I was in the hospital. Because even after the Suboxone, when it wore off, I took some more Vicodin. Yeah. And so I went there and I was high. And, I wouldn't say I was high, but it was pumping through my system to make me normal. I was just, I was just trying to take it to the point where I could just function. And so I walked out and I was like, that's it. Like, I'm done. And I went home and I started packing up all my shit. And, we had a talk also, even when he was in the hospital, he's like, I'm losing the condo. I said, I know. And he's like, I don't know what to do, man. And I was like, it's okay, dude. I can't afford to pay you anyway. And so he's like, he's like, after all this, I got to move back in with his parents, because his parents were notified and everything. And so he ended up moving back in with them and then spending the time through the clinic. And so that's when I packed up everything, threw it in my bag. My next door neighbor at the condo, his name was Dave Sanderson. He's a great dude. He used to work for Precor back in the day, creating the elliptical machine of all things. And he saw what was going on. He knew that we were struggling bad. I had opened up to him about wanting to stop. And so he saw me when I was like packing everything up, and it's just like, dude, you okay? I said, yeah, shit, man, I don't know. I don't know if I am, but this is what's going on. Casey's in the hospital. I'm here. I got to pack up my shit and I got to get out. And he's just like, why don't you come crash on my couch? He's like, look, you can just, I've got another house. It's, 5 miles away. It's a rental. No one's in it right now. Crash on my couch for just a week, 2 weeks, just to clean yourself up. So I remember, dude, I'll never forget there's a guest room in the house, and it's got like those wood shutters, that you can draw like the flaps, right? Yeah. And dude, I laid there in that bed with the wood was this color right here, like a dark cherry wood, and I just sat there like looking at those shutters, and I was just like, here we go. Oh, here we go. And it was just like I would lay there and I'd just slowly make my way to the kitchen, drink some water, grab some nuts or whatever I could possibly get down, just go back, maybe just try to watch some TV, and I just grinded it out for like 3 days. And then 3 days in, I started feeling a little bit better, and then started drinking a shit ton of caffeine just to try to like fill the gap. That was my Indiana Jones moment right there. Yeah. So it wasn't food, it was caffeine. So I just, and then from that moment, it was like, okay, I'm feeling better. It was so cool. Because it literally was. It was actually only about 3 days. It was 3 days of absolute hell, going cold turkey. And I've heard stories of it being longer for some people and shorter for others. But it was 3 days. It was really rough before I started to have that mental clarity again, and to start to feel like there's the other side of the hill here. And from that point, I was like, I thanked Dave, and I was like, hey, man, I'm going to go sleep on my buddy Mike's couch for a little bit. So I went over to my buddy Mike's house, and he let me stay in his guest room for a little bit. And then from there, I was like, shit, I got to get out of Arizona. So I drove out to LA, and I kind of tried to make life work out there. And that's the adventures began. It was wild.
Man, I feel like we could sit here for hours and talk, but we don't. Yeah. You got another podcast.
Holy smokes. Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So let's just talk just a couple minutes about what you're doing now and stuff like that, and then we'll wrap this up.
Yeah. So I spent the last couple years rebuilding. After the show, I ended up creating a company called Transform, and we had an app, and we launched a supplement line and everything. Then I went through a divorce, and so that was kind of, what happens. Yeah. It was just another obstacle in the journey, and so it took a few years to kind of take everything apart. But then I started rebuilding my life as a single dad with 2 kids, and I ended up creating a platform called the Kept app, and it's all about keeping promises, which I'm so passionate about, because I've seen firsthand that change so many lives. With all the people that I work with, it's about keeping their promises and honoring that commitment. That's what changed Rachel's life. And so that's why she's just as passionate about this platform, because what you do is it's all these different pillars of wellness, from nutrition to training to sleep to hydration, but also to gratitude, acts of kindness, breathing, stress management. Because, I'm a perpetual student, and I look back to the years that I've taken people through the journey of transformation, and I kick myself because I'm thinking, what more could I have done? And I realized that some of the tools that I wasn't able to give because I just didn't know that much about them was teaching people about stress management, but also teaching about service. And that's why acts of kindness is one of the major pillars of wellness. And I won't do a transformation now if people aren't doing some sort of act of kindness, every day. And it could be a small thing, just giving someone a compliment or holding a door for someone. But it's really important that's a huge, and I've realized how important that is in actually ingraining nutrition and training and all of these in actually in implementing them, because I realize how much transformation is holistic. It's not just physical. You can't have a conversation about physical change without talking about mental and emotional change as well. You have to address the whole human. And so Kept is that platform. And we just launched it in January. And it's cool because, I spent my life learning about training and nutrition, wellness, and all of this. And now it's like I'm learning about marketing and I'm learning about finance. Like as I'm kind of rebuilding a business by myself. Well, and with my team, but it's cool because I'm learning skills that I never had before. I'm learning business. So, that connected me with Jason Phillips, and which is just a great dude. And he's like, hey, dude, come out to NCI, come out to Coaching Con and talk with the people, because they're people just like you that are passionate about changing lives. And so just the whole thing came together at the right time.
He's recording with us tomorrow morning.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm excited for that one too.
He's a great guy.
So it's on the App Store?
Yes. Yeah. So it's on the Google Play Store and the App Store.
And it's Kept, K-E-P-T?
Kept with Chris Powell. That's right.
Kept with Chris Powell.
And I also, one more thing, I started during the pandemic, and this is something that's really helped me with my mental health, but I started a service project called Move 1 Million.
Oh, yeah.
I spoke about it. In fact, I got you guys moving yesterday.
Yeah. Full transparency. I'm up there and I'm like, what in the heck? I have like 6 inches to do these movements, but you know what I did do? This, you'll like to hear this. Because I did that yesterday, I woke up this morning and right there in that little spot, I didn't do those movements because I couldn't remember exactly what they were, but I did my own little, but it's because I remembered doing that.
Dude, it's the coolest thing in the world, right? And it's just, there's a long story behind Move 1 Million. It was inspired by something that happened in Japan in 1928. And so during the pandemic, obviously we saw everything that was happening with these kids during quarantine, right? Where their physical health, they weren't moving. Mental health is in the trash. Emotional health, they can't connect with other kids. And so we were in a really bad way and these kids were suffering. Abuse was through the roof during the pandemic, physical, emotional, sexual abuse of these kids. And I was thinking, like, what could I do to help them? And I ended up seeing a documentary on Japan. 1928, Emperor Hirohito, he mandated 3.5 minutes of movement across the entire country of Japan at 6:30 a.m. every morning. And they brought in the radio from the United States and they'd play the same song at 6:30 in the morning. And everyone would go through 13 movements. And it was a top-down total body warm-up. And he was trying to solve 2 problems. He was trying to unify his country, and he was trying to help them live longer, because the average person in Japan, they were dying at 41 years old. By 1955, Japan was the healthiest country in the world. They were a third world country before it. By 1955, they were the healthiest country in the world. Today, 96 years later, 27 million Japanese citizens do Ragio Taiso every single morning still, 6:30 in the morning. He mandated it across schools, corporations, factories, and everything. But the gift that he actually gave his people, and he didn't even know what was happening, but if I started playing the Macarena right now, the song, what do? You
start doing the Macarena.
You do the Macarena, right? Music anchors movement into your memory. So when you play the same music for all these kids K through 6. And every single day, the music starts and they learn how to move their body from the top down. They learn a proper biomechanical warm-up. Oh, that means I got another. I got to finish this though. This is too good. They learn a proper biomechanical warm-up. They will know that for the rest of their lives. Yeah. You do that with a child for 1 year, kindergarten. The moment that music starts playing, they will know how to move their body for the rest of their life. They will know how to move and properly move and warm up their body. I spent 20 years of my life helping people that didn't know how to take that first step. That's the first step. I want to give the world, every child out there, that gift so that they know how, again, they can take that first step. That's the first step to any movement, any workout. What do? You warm up. It's a perfect warm up. And so if you can learn that warm up to music, it's going to anchor it into your memory, and you'll have it when that music can play when you're 60 years old. And guess what? That kid who learned it in kindergarten, they're going to know how to move their body. And so I wanted to create that gift and put it on a platform for free. So I just created a portal so any teacher in America, around the world, can download this portal, and every morning that she can move or he can move with the kids. And it's cool, and it took off. And so now we're moving like over 100,000 kids a day across 76 countries.
Wow.
It's a ton of fun. It's really
cool. And it's
cool.
called Move 1 Million?
Move 1 Million. Go to m1m.org.
M1, the number one.
The number one.
M.org.
That's right.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So
that's really cool. Well, I know we got to wrap this up, and you're on Instagram at Chris Powell. Just Chris.
Real Chris Powell.
Real Chris Powell. And M1M and Kept with Chris Powell, right?
There you go. Yes.
All right, Ben, any final thoughts?
Dude, I always say at the end of these podcasts, like I could just keep going for hours, but right now, I'll be honest, I feel so so overcome, like inspired, grateful.
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting here like, you know, after hearing your story about addiction, knowing mine, Tom's, it's like, what in the world did I do to deserve to be sitting here having this experience today?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time digesting that. Like it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Well, you guys you're doing amazing work, and you're helping a lot of people. So keep changing lives. We need more people like you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message and go to the Facebook support group. It's at Real Recovery Talk Support Group. Go there and hit whatever button you have to hit to get in, and we'll let you in, and we'll connect there. All right, that is it. We will see y'all later.